I never planned to show my success at my brother Frank's wedding. For years, I hid the truth from my family, letting them think I worked at a small consulting company while I secretly built a huge business. But Frank's mean words that day changed everything. Standing in the fancy ballroom of the Grand Plaza Hotel, I smoothed my simple navy dress. I had chosen it on purpose to look plain. Around me, crystal chandeliers gave a warm light over the beautifully decorated tables, and waiters walked around with glasses of champagne. This was just the kind of flashy event Frank loved, a chance to show off his so-called success. "Betty," my mother's voice broke into my thoughts. "There you are. Why aren't you talking to people? Everyone's asking about you." She looked me over quickly, her mouth tightening a little. "Though, I guess there's not much to tell." I took a slow sip of champagne, thinking about the big meeting I had led just yesterday, where we sealed a deal to buy our biggest competitor. "I'm doing fine, Mom," I said. "The consulting work keeps me busy." She sighed loudly. "Being busy isn't the same as being successful, dear. Look at your brother, the youngest VP in Sterling Industries history, about to marry the CEO's daughter. That's real success." I hid a smile, knowing something she didn't. Sterling Industries was actually struggling. They had been trying for months to set up a meeting with the CEO of my company, me. But my family didn't know that. They thought I worked at a tiny firm, not that I owned Aurora Consulting Group, one of the biggest consulting companies in the country. And they had no idea I wasn't just an employee, I was the founder and CEO. "Betty." Frank's loud voice cut into my thoughts. He walked over with a champagne glass in hand, his new wife Laura holding onto his arm. "Still hiding in the corners at parties?" "Some things never change," he teased. Laura giggled, fixing her fancy dress. "Frank told me all about your little consulting job. It's so cute that you're trying to make it on your own." I watched them and thought about how different things were 16 years ago. Back then, Frank was the one struggling, barely passing his classes, while I graduated at the top of mine. But then Dad stepped in and used his connections to get Frank a starting job at Sterling Industries. Meanwhile, I was told to be realistic about my dreams. Someone had to do the small jobs, they said. Frank kept talking, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Poor sis," he said, "still working at that tiny firm while the rest of us build real careers. But hey, at least you're independent, right?" Laura laughed, a sharp sound like glass breaking. "Oh, darling, be nice," she said. "Not everyone can be as successful as you." I felt the weight of the old locket around my neck, my grandmother's last gift to me before she passed away. She was the only one who had truly believed in me and my dreams. "Success comes in many forms, Frank," I said quietly. Sure, Frank said, waving his hand like he didn't care. "Speaking of success, did you hear? The CEO of Sterling is coming to the wedding reception tonight, Mr. Shipley himself. He never shows up at employee events, but for me." Frank puffed up with pride. I knew exactly why Henry Shipley was coming. He wasn't there for Frank, he wanted to talk to me about buying Sterling Industries, something he had been trying to do for weeks. I had been delaying the meeting, waiting to see how desperate they would get. "That's wonderful," I said softly, hiding my smile behind my champagne glass. "Just try not to embarrass me when he gets here," Frank said. "Stay out of the way. This is important for my career." Before I could say anything, the room suddenly went quiet. Henry Shipley had arrived. He had a strong presence, tall with sharp eyes and steel-gray hair. He looked exactly the same as he did in our video calls. Frank straightened his back quickly and pulled Laura with him, ready to greet his boss. But before he could take even 2 steps, Shipley's eyes found me, and his face lit up with a big smile. "Miss Patrick," he called out, walking straight toward me. "I had no idea you'd be here." Frank froze mid-step, a confused look on his face. Laura's perfectly shaped eyebrows pulled together in confusion too. "Ma'am," Shipley said as he reached me, shaking my hand respectfully. "We've been trying to set up a meeting with you for weeks. I didn't expect to find you at an employee's wedding." I could feel Frank staring at me as I shook Shipley's hand. "Hello, Henry," I said. "Surprised to see me here?" "Why wouldn't I be?" he said. "It's not every day you meet the CEO of Aurora Consulting at a wedding." He glanced at Frank, then back at me, realization dawning on his face. Wait, is Frank your brother? I nodded, allowing myself a small smile as I watched the color drain from Frank's face. He had just found out about my real job. The silence in the room was heavy. I saw my mother's hand shaking as she held her champagne glass, and my father's mouth hung open in shock. But it was Frank's face that really captured the moment, a mix of disbelief, embarrassment, and growing fear as he realized he had spent the last hour making fun of someone way above him. Henry Shipley looked between us, clearly trying to understand what was happening. Your brother? He asked. But he said his sister worked at a small local consulting firm. That's what they all thought, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the room. I never corrected them. Laura's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the marble floor. The loud crash seemed to wake everyone up, and suddenly the room was full of whispers and talking. But I kept my eyes on Frank, watching as his fake world of being the best started falling apart. I hadn't planned to show my success this way, but standing there, seeing my family's image of me break, just like Laura's glass, I realized that sometimes the best moments in life are the ones you don't plan. And this was just the beginning. The next few minutes at the wedding felt like a messy dance. My mother, always worried about appearances, rushed to my side, smiling too brightly. Betty, darling, she gushed, why didn't you tell us about your job? I took another sip of champagne, enjoying the moment. You never asked, I said. You were all too busy cheering for Frank's achievements to care about my little consulting job. Henry Shipley was still nearby, looking both amused and a bit uncomfortable. Miss Patrick, I didn't realize this was your family, he said. Maybe we can finally talk about the merger? Frank interrupted, panic clear in his voice. He grabbed my arm tightly. I calmly pulled my arm away, keeping my voice steady. The one where Aurora Consulting is thinking about buying Sterling Industries, I said. Then I turned to Shipley. Though after tonight, I'm having second thoughts about the deal. Frank turned pale. Laura looked like she might faint. But that would make you my boss, Frank stammered. I smiled. Yes, it would. Funny how life works, isn't it? At that moment, my father finally found his voice and pushed through the crowd gathering around us. His face was red with anger. Now wait just a minute, he shouted. You can't just show up and ruin your brother's wedding with these claims. Henry Shipley cleared his throat, looking like he was about to say something important. I can assure you, sir, Shipley said, your daughter is exactly who she says she is. Aurora Consulting is the biggest business advisory firm in the country, and Miss Patrick built it from the ground up. We've been trying to arrange this merger for months. I watched my father's face as the truth sank in. This was the same man who told me, 11 years ago, that I was dreaming too big when I said I wanted to start my own company. The same man who used all his connections to help Frank climb the corporate ladder while telling me to be realistic about my goals. But the money, my mother stammered. All those times you said you couldn't help with family expenses? Oh, you mean the $70,000 you took from my savings for Frank's MBA? I said calmly, though I could feel old anger rising inside me. The money you never paid back because, as you put it, Frank needs it more for his future. Laura stepped forward, her wedding dress making a soft rustling sound. Frank, darling, she said. Did you know about this? About her company? Of course not, Frank snapped, then quickly tried to pull himself together. She's always been jealous of my success. This must be some kind of mistake. Shipley raised an eyebrow. The only mistake, Mr. Patrick, he said, was your understanding of your sister's place in the business world. Aurora Consulting's yearly income is more than Sterling Industries has earned in the last 6 years combined. The ballroom was dead silent. Every guest was watching us like we were the main show at a play. Frank's perfect wedding had become the biggest story in the corporate world, but not for the reasons he had hoped. I think, I said quietly, we should continue this conversation somewhere private. I nodded to Shipley. Henry, would you mind giving me a moment with my family? He nodded politely and stepped away. I led my family into a small room off the main ballroom and closed the door. The silence was heavy. How dare you? Frank finally exploded. This is my wedding day. You couldn't just let me have this one thing? I laughed, but there was no joy in it. One thing. You've had everything handed to you your whole life. Dad's connections got you into Sterling. Mom's jewelry paid for your MBA. My savings funded your failed business attempts. Meanwhile, I built something real, something lasting, all on my own. We were trying to protect you, my mother said, wringing her hands. The business world is so cruel to women. No, Mom, I said. You weren't protecting me. You were pushing me aside. Every time I achieved something, you ignored it because it didn't match the picture you had of who I was supposed to be. My father finally stepped forward, his businessman side waking up. Now, Betty, he said carefully, let's be reasonable. We're family after all. We can work something out that helps everyone, my father said. You mean now that you know I'm successful, you want to be part of it? I shook my head. The merger with Sterling was just a favor to Shipley. He's a good CEO stuck with a bad board. But after tonight, I looked straight at Frank. I think it's time for some changes. You can't do this, Frank whispered, his confidence finally breaking. My position, my future. Your position was always shaky, Frank, I said. You've lost 4 major clients this year. The only reason you still have a job is because of Laura's family connections. I smoothed my simple navy dress and added, but don't worry. When Aurora takes over Sterling, we'll find a job that actually matches your real skills. Laura let out a small sob. My father won't let this happen, she said. Your father? I said softly. He called me last week to make sure the merger happens. Sterling Industries is drowning in debt, and Aurora Consulting is their only hope. Frank finally seemed to understand how serious this was. His legs gave out, and he collapsed into a chair. All this time, while we were laughing at you, you were building an empire, he said. I tried to tell you, I said. All of you. So many times. But you never listened. You were too busy planning Frank's next big promotion. Too busy protecting the perfect family image. I moved toward the door. Well, now you know the truth. And everything is going to change. Betty, please. My mother called out as I reached for the door. We're still family. I paused, hand on the handle, then turned to face them. Family? I said. Family supports each other. Family listens. Family doesn't mock or tear down. You weren't family when I needed you most. You don't get to call yourselves family now that I'm successful. With that, I opened the door and walked back into the ballroom, leaving them to deal with a new reality. Shipley was waiting near the bar, a knowing look in his eyes. Shall we talk about the merger terms, Miss Patrick? He asked quietly. I nodded, a small smile on my lips. Yes, Henry. I think it's time we reshape Sterling Industries, starting with the management team. As we walked away to handle business, I could feel my family's eyes burning into my back. The simple navy dress I wore to blend in now felt like armor. They had spent years underestimating me, brushing aside everything I had achieved, treating me like the family disappointment. But now they knew exactly who I was. And this was just the beginning. I knew what to expect. Lots of family drama, desperate messages trying to fix things, and not-so-subtle attempts to guilt-trip me. My phone buzzed all the time with messages. Mom. Betty, darling, let's talk about this like family. Dad. Your brother is heartbroken. How could you do this to him? Frank. We need to talk about my position at Sterling. Laura. My father wants to meet with you. I ignored them all. I had more important things to do, like completing the merger. On the morning of the Sterling Industries board meeting, I stood in my office at the top floor of Aurora Consulting's headquarters, adjusting my suit jacket. This wasn't the simple navy dress from the wedding. Today, I wore a sharp black Armani suit that screamed power and authority. No more hiding. My assistant Anna knocked on the door. Your brother is here again, Miss Patrick. 3rd time this week. I sighed and checked my watch. Send him in. Might as well get this over with before the meeting. Frank walked in looking a mess, very different from his usual polished self. His expensive suit was wrinkled, and his tie was crooked. Betty, please, you have to listen to me, he begged. I'm listening, I said, sitting down behind my desk. Though I'm not sure what's left to say after your 28 voicemails and 45 texts. He ran a hand through his hair, clearly stressed. Look, I know I was terrible at the wedding. I know I didn't take your work seriously. But you can't just take over Sterling Industries. My whole life is there. Your whole life, I repeated slowly, was handed to you. Every opportunity, every promotion, every success, Dad arranged it, or it was paid for by someone else.
Usually me.
That's not fair, he said. Not fair. I stood up, placing both hands on my desk. You know what's not fair? Using my savings for your MBA without asking. Mocking my small company while I was building an empire. Treating me like a failure while I succeeded beyond anything you could dream of. I'm sorry, he whispered. And for the first time, I thought maybe he really meant it. Sorry doesn't change the past, Frank. And it doesn't change what's about to happen. I glanced at my watch again. The board meeting starts in an hour. I suggest you get ready. What's going to happen to me? He asked, sounding scared. I sat back down and studied him carefully. That depends on you. Aurora Consulting rewards skill, not family connections. If you want to keep a job at Sterling after the merger, you'll have to earn it. Actually earn it. His face went pale. You mean start from the bottom? Learn the business properly? No shortcuts? No special treatment. I held up my hand as Frank started to argue. It's either that or severance pay. Your choice. Just then, the office door swung open again. This time it was my parents, pushing past Anna, even though she tried to stop them. Betty, my mother said, her voice shaking, we've been trying to reach you for weeks. I've been busy, I said calmly. Running my little firm takes a lot of work. My father stepped forward, his face serious, the same look he always used when trying to make a deal. Honey, we need to talk about this calmly. You can't destroy your brother's career over a few past misunderstandings. Misunderstandings? I laughed. Is that what we're calling years of ignoring and disrespecting me? We made mistakes, my mother said, wringing her hands. But we're family. That has to count for something. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out an old family photo, the last one we took before I started Aurora Consulting. In it, I was standing a little apart from the rest, wearing a simple dress while they wore expensive clothes. Even back then, I had been treated like an outsider. Family counted when I needed support starting my business, I said. It counted when I was working 20-hour days to build my company. It counted every time you chose to celebrate Frank's small promotions while ignoring my real achievements. I set the photo down on the desk.
But now?
Now, it's just business. There was a knock at the door. Anna poked her head in. Miss Patrick, the board is gathering. I stood up, straightening my jacket. Thank you, Anna. I'll be right there. I turned to my family. You're welcome to stay and watch the meeting from the monitors in the waiting area. I think you'll find it educational. The Sterling Industries boardroom went silent as I walked in. 15 board members watched me take my seat at the head of the table. Henry Shipley stood up to greet me. Miss Patrick, thank you for joining us. Shall we begin? The next hour was like a masterclass in business leadership. I went over Aurora's plans for Sterling, department by department, position by position. By the end, some board members were nodding with approval, while others looked shocked. Finally, I finished. We'll be completely rebuilding the management structure. No more jobs handed out because of family ties. From now on, only real skills and results will matter. Through the glass walls, I could see my family in the waiting area. Frank had sunk into a chair, head in his hands. My parents stood stiffly, finally realizing just how much power I had. After the meeting, Shipley came over to me. Brilliant presentation as always, he said. I have to ask, Shipley said. Your brother's position, will it be handled fairly? It will, I assured him. If he's willing to work hard, there's a place for him, starting in entry-level sales. Shipley nodded, looking pleased. You're more generous than most would be in your position. This isn't about revenge, I said as I gathered my papers. It's about building something real and lasting. When I walked out into the waiting area, my family was still there. But now, they looked different, smaller, weaker. Nothing like the people who had once seemed so powerful to me. So that's it? Frank asked quietly. Everything changes just like that? Everything changed years ago, Frank, I said. You just didn't notice because you were too busy looking down on me. I turned to my parents. The company will send new job contracts tomorrow. I suggest you read them carefully. Betty, my mother said, stepping forward with tears in her eyes. We were wrong about you. So wrong. Can't we start over? I thought about all those family dinners where they ignored my achievements. All the celebrations where Frank was treated like a star and I was treated like an afterthought. All the times they pushed aside my dreams for his. Starting over would mean forgetting the past, I said. And I don't want to forget. Those years of being dismissed and overlooked had taught me important lessons about being strong and standing on my own. They made me who I am, I said. And who are you? My father asked, his voice low. I'm the woman who built a billion-dollar company while you all were too busy mocking my tiny firm. I'm the CEO who just bought the company you once thought was the peak of success. And I'm the daughter who stopped needing your approval and found her own path instead. I started walking toward the elevator but paused and looked back at them. The contracts will arrive tomorrow. It's your choice whether to sign them. But either way, things will never go back to how they were. As the elevator doors closed, I caught one last glimpse of them, standing there in the waiting room of the company I built, finally seeing me clearly for the first time. That night, sitting in my penthouse office, I opened my grandmother's locket, the only family keepsake I truly treasured. Inside was a small note she had written years ago. Success isn't about who believes in you at the end. It's about believing in yourself from the beginning. I smiled, thinking about how far I had come from that overlooked daughter in the family photo. Frank's wedding had just been the start. Now everyone finally knew who I really was, not the family disappointment, but the woman who changed their whole world. And somehow, that felt better than any revenge ever could.